Hey, what's going on, guys? We're back with another episode of the PokeTalk podcast. Ended up being quite the episode content this week. We got a lot of news.
A lot of news. Yeah.
Yeah, new Pokemon set, new Lurkana set, new special products. A lot of Pokemon drama.
Yeah.
So some of those things we're not going to go into too much detail, but we'll kind of give you like the lowdown, and you can look into it for yourself because we're not really wanting to get into especially like the drama side of things. But
exactly.
But yeah, what's been happening?
Well, a lot. I think both of us can attest to that. You obviously will have your own input on it, but man, it has been a whirlwind these past couple weeks. I feel like I've been on cloud nine, like this natural high for about, I don't know, like all month. Almost feeling like, am I on cloud nine? Am I manic? I can't tell which. Who knows? Maybe both. All of them at once. So I'm feeling pretty good. Sold all but my Elsa D23 cards. Well, I guess I have my Mickey 9 as well, and the folders and the pens.
Yeah.
Keeping the folders. I think those are kind of cool for now. I have two of them. I might sell one. Like I said, I'm keeping them now. I might get a couple $100, but you know what? We'll go into it in a little bit later, but I think I'm just going to hold on to those and the pen and the Mickey 9 and the Elsa 10 right now. I mean, the reason why I chose to hang on to her is, one, I think she can go further. And two, for tax purposes, if I sold now, I'd have to pay an additional like upwards of $1,000 in taxes based on where I'm at on the tax bracket. So either I wait now or wait till next year. Even if it drops, it's really irrelevant. So I'm just kind of waiting, and the earliest I might do it is around summer if there's a peak. We've kind of both discussed the potential outlook of the D23 cards, and we both kind of agree there's going to be a delay increase, either potentially as early as this summer or potentially 1 to 2 years like we saw with the Japanese promos in Pokemon. It's really, we both believe in the same sentiment. It's just about kind of when it might happen is kind of the uncertainty that we see. But either way, we both agree that it's going to potentially go up. Well, most likely increase any point between summer and the following summer, summer 2024, summer 2025 or so. Either way, so I'm going to hold on to it. I hope it times well where I can potentially get the first edition Charizard that you might sell. If not, it is what it is.
I need to figure out what I'm going to do, but with all that situation as well.
Yeah, and holding off on the Mario for just a few more weeks. Basically, I decided to pay off all debts, and we're making a play with some Disney Lurkana. Another play. Hey! So I'm basically waiting until I get my Christmas bonus to officially buy the Mario, and that's probably what I should have done regardless. But, when you're so close, you've been talking about this card for years, and you're so close, you can feel it, you can taste it. It's making it very difficult for those final few weeks to be patient. But at the same time, you just got to tell yourself, listen, it's just 2-3 more weeks. What is it in the grand scheme of things?
Yeah.
And the other thing is, because of some of the cards, in addition to selling mostly towards that, I have to live it for myself, obviously, with the PS9 Mario, but I'm also getting a whole sleeve tattoo. Hey, what's up?
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, the plays, we've been looking at the D100 Lorcana gift box, of course. Bought a few, maybe a little too early because they've definitely came down, but it's been confirmed to be a limited product. Really don't think they're going to be reprinting this. You essentially get 6 awesome-looking artwork cards, all unique style, like totally unique art compared to even brand new style that is normally in the sets. Has the artist signature on them, very like Wii Swartz style.
Mm-hmm.
So these cards, ultimately, when I have the boxes in hand, there will be a loss, but we were thinking about the end product after we grade them, and I think that'll be pretty easily, even if the cards are like $100 a piece, even in a PSA 9, which is pretty reasonable. Like people would scoop those up. That's definitely making a lot of money. So they might not even reach that, but the odds, even paying like what we did, I think the odds that will be all right is fine. And anybody who's picking up this box at $50 MSRP is definitely going to be all right.
Yep.
So
See.
we're going to venture into a local game store here in a few
Yep.
hours when they open. See if we can get that cost averaging down. Pick up another for 50
Yeah,
bucks.
and I'm maybe canceling some orders because there was kind of some, I read some places where it was going to be on the first, other places where it said no LGS is going to be on the 17th, and trying to find this through, multiple articles, I couldn't figure it out. People on social media were saying multiple things. I had no idea. Um, and I was like, I want to make sure I got it. So at the time, it was a pretty solid price for the market at the time. And this was just like last week. Well, they weren't going to ship out till the first. Well, I thought that was okay. And if maybe some of them have them earlier, great. Well, now that we see that LGSs all over the country have them, I'm probably going to cancel. Now, if I can get this product for MSRP, that would put me at $240 a box, which isn't terrible. As far as the cost basis, it's probably a little higher than what it should be, but it's okay enough. Now, if I can't get one or they don't have one for MSRP, I'm going to kind of see where things are at Monday, Tuesday, and I'm going to go ahead and cancel it. It is what it is. I mean, the guy, you can't, at first I was feeling like, because, I am a seller as well. Nathan is a seller, so we understand both sides of the equation. But then I was like thinking about, I was like, wait a minute. If he has a actual like ability to, if he's got a thing with Disney Lorcana and actually selling them, so he's getting them for wholesale, so he's getting them for like $25 a box. He's making 8 times his money even after taxes and fees. What am I feeling sorry for?
Well, a lot of them too, like the LGSs were supposed to be today, which is when you're hearing this Friday. So the what is it, the 17th?
Yeah.
And then big box stores on the 1st. Well, what a lot of stores were doing on eBay is like they'd put it up there and they said might ship out on the 17th, might ship out on the 1st. We'll just ship it out whenever we get it. So that's fine and dandy, like to sell them early, but people know when they're going to get them. Like, if you're an official Lorcana store, which people know if they are because they host the games and they get the packs to hand out to players. If you're an official Lorcana store, you got it today. If you're not, odds of you getting it today are pretty much nothing, and you'll be whenever the big box stores. So a lot of people were kind of using that as to like an advantage. Say like we'll ship it out when we get our allocation, anywhere from the 17th to the 1st. It's like, okay, like it's kind of shady, So yeah, a lot of those listings, I'm sure a lot of people will be like, I did pay up around $200. I think that's like the magic number, because with $200, even if all 6 cards were $50 a piece, then you factor in grading fees, I think $200 is like a decent spot to where you could sell for a little profit if you want, or just keep them for about break even. So I bought a couple boxes there, and one of them I didn't buy till just like 2 days ago when he had the box in hand, and he's already shipped. And then this other guy who said in the description that they have their allocation on the 17th because they're an official store, he shipped as well. And the one I'm waiting to hear from is the one I actually bought first, who's kind of sketchy with it, right? So yeah, we'll see what happens.
The real reason why I was unsure is because I get points through using PayPal. I paid off the credit line already. Like, I like to pay stuff quick as possible. So that was the only thing that made me like, should I do it? Because then it's gonna become complicated. But then I was like, hold on, I'm pretty sure it just has it as like a negative balance, so that once you get to it, it breaks even once you spend that difference. So that's probably what I'm just gonna just say screw it, and I'm leaning towards like 65-35% doing it to not doing it, just because it doesn't make sense. Like I'm looking at the prices and I'm like, why am I trying to be nice towards somebody that doesn't care about me for a difference of $250?
Yeah.
Like it's pretty significant. You know what I mean? And I figure the quicker I get on this, the better it is for him to resell it. And my guess is if he's getting them on the first, what he most likely did is he either used bots for Target for pre-orders, or somehow he is a small non-brick and mortar LGS, but he doesn't have enough reviews to make me think that. He had like 150 reviews or something like that.
Yeah.
So that makes me think if he is one, he hasn't been doing it for very long. And with how difficult it was to access, to become a new store, either he got on the ball early or like, in the summer, or he is most likely using bots to buy from Target. So
Yeah.
whichever the purpose, he's already made his money and then some. So there's no reason for me to feel sorry because right now he's probably thinking of me as a sucker all the way to the bank.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like even
Yep.
if
Yep. For sure.
but yeah, if I can't get this, I'm probably going to cancel. If I do get this at the LGS, I might hold off because it lowers the cost basis to a more comfortable margin. But we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, and with this coming out, there is the second chapter coming out as well in
Mm-hmm.
Lorcana today. Rise of the Floodborn. What I'm seeing online is like the stock seems better than what the first
Yep,
chapter was, so that's
absolutely.
good. There's more first chapter coming.
Mm-hmm.
Feel like now we're starting to see the community like flourish a little bit
Yep.
because we are actually getting stock more available. So that's nice.
Which is good for those also that have or haven't bought the D100 product because what Nathan and I were discussing was so what can lead to this crazy growth of this box quick, like through hype scenario, through social media FOMOing. And one of those is the accessibility that reaches to casuals, right? So enough people are able to get product that finally it's able to stay on the shelves for a little bit. And it reaches people that haven't been able to think about it or doesn't really know much about it, but kind of interested. It reaches those people. It reaches new people that don't even know about it yet. Well, suddenly,
Yeah.
what's the first thing that they're gonna be on? The D100 cards. First thing, not the D23, the D100.
Yeah, that's a whole nother point of the market too. Like you said, we haven't even seen the casual base because stuff hasn't been available, and like stuff just gets scooped up so quick. And there's a point to all this. We're gonna kind of talk about Pokemon in the
Yep.
sense of if the magic of Pokemon can be replaced or replicated. And essentially talking all this Lorcana across all these episodes, we're kind of in tune to that market, and we're seeing these problems firsthand where like casuals can't get into it and stuff like that. So they're the most relevant thing right now and probably for the near future that's going to try,
Mm-hmm.
and possibly the only ones who could, if it was possible, to replicate that magic. So that's kind of what we're getting at. But yeah, a lot of the casuals or even the kids, that's the biggest thing. With Pokemon, you could go into a store and buy cards, and that's pretty much the only people who were buying cards. The adults were kind of losers if they were buying that stuff, right? But now with the internet era and all the nerdy stuff kind of not necessarily being cool to some people, but more accepted because there's more of us out there communicating with each other. Like you're seeing parents picking up Lorcana, like you're seeing our age people with kids like trying to get them into it. So not only do you have the kids, but you have the parents too. And I would say it's more so like teenagers to 25-year-olds than it is kids right now, just because of that lack of availability in stores where kids are at. So hopefully that'll get better with time goes on. I'm sure there's going to be more second chapter reprints as well. So it's
Yeah.
starting off strong, stronger than people expected, but
I think
still
part
going
of
to
it
sell out.
was honestly, I think a part of it might have been there was, some folks were kind of discussing how why was there such a shortage of product for the first set? I think some of it was it kind of caught them off guard how big it was. I think the other aspect was they kind of wanted to see what was the demand before printing things to oblivion. I do believe that had some merit. And it's kind of looking like that based on how much product they were able to get in 2 months. That indicates to me that they had the capabilities from the beginning, right?
Well, they
Like,
have the capabilities, but a lot of it is like talking with these printing companies, because like the same printing company might be printing Magic or Pokemon or
mm-hmm.
One Piece. Like they can't just say, "Oh yeah, give us more of that." It's like, okay, well you're fourth in line, so here you go. And like my theory on that is, Rise of the Floodborn was printing probably when first chapter released, so they knew the hype probably when that was still in print. So that is more likely of a case like, hey, we really need more of this. Since you're already printing this, can you up the
Double.
production
Yeah.
or double it or whatever? I would think the company would be more likely to, you know, I'm not too familiar with the factory conditions inside a place like that, but I have buddies who work at other, like a box facility where they make boxes. And, if they have a big order come in, they do mandatory overtime. Their boss is like, hey, we're working 12-hour shifts this week. So it might be that situation. But yeah, who knows? Definitely, we're pretty much done with the first chapter, so they had to wait to get more of that out there. So I'm sure the printing companies really want to work with them. Disney's backing this, so it's like if anyone,
Give me that Disney money.
yeah, everyone wants that Disney
Give me that
money.
mouse money.
If there's anyone they're going to prioritize, it should be Disney or Pokemon.
Because they
So
see it as like, don't piss off these people now because, don't bite off the hand that feeds us, essentially. And that's, the money is there and the capability is there. It's not like it's One Piece and you're uncertain that this might go belly up, even though the fandom for One Piece is one of the biggest IPs that there is. And even though, being aware of that, knowing that you don't know how successful it might be. However, when you got that Disney money, that Fortune 500 company behind it, all of a sudden you feel more comfortable with your investment or your potential, like, okay, let's go ahead and give in or lean over a little bit for them.
yeah, so yeah, definitely some power in the name there. But speaking of new sets, I want to jump into the new Pokemon sets that have been
Yep.
leaking out. We have
Shiny treasure.
Shiny Treasure EX, which is releasing in Japan December 1st.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, we got the product images and the pack images of Paldean
Mm-hmm.
Fates, which is our version of that. So brand new Shining Fates, Hidden Fates, Shiny Legends. It's a brand new product along those lines. It's going to be
And,
lots of shinies, baby shinies, and the whole 9 yards.
say what you will about some of the modern hollows for Pokemon. Um, the aesthetic that the shiny library brings in terms of cards that they use for shiny fates, hidden fates, that silver border with stars and this focus on, like, the shiny, like, it has a silver border to where it brings you into the Pokemon and really, pops, makes the shiny Pokemon pop. Um, there's something about these cards that allow, obviously, for those to collect it, and they're honestly, for what they are, they're pretty cool to look at for what they are.
Yeah. We get another full art Mew. This is now like the
Yay!
third or fourth shiny full art Mew or something like that. Someone pointed out. Yeah. We have the equivalent of 3 full art Mew EXs now. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
cool. Like, Kanto favors once again.
Well,
Same
and
old
I mean,
story.
they had Mew for 151, right? And then they had it for then they had, I know they had Mew, was it for Visar Universe as well?
Something like that. Celebrations.
Yeah, and Celebrations. Yeah, I think they ever did the reprint. I mean,
And they did like a gold Mew.
yeah, and I mean, I will say the Shiny Mew is pretty awesome. Like, let's be real. Shiny Mew it's simple. It's a Carolina blue aesthetic, but I mean, it's awesome. Okay.
Why not
And
Mewtwo even? I mean,
yeah,
why
well, the
not
Mewtwo with
Mewtwo?
the
Why not
green, well, the Mewtwo
20
with the green,
others?
it's not the same appeal. maybe it's just me. I'm biased. Blue is my favorite color, and specifically, I mean, I like multiple shades of blue, but that lighter blue is one of my personal favorites. So it's. I mean, for me, it's just very soothing just to look at. It's nice. It's easy on the eyes. I'll say it like that.
Another thing easy on the eyes is the English ETB's got Mimikyu on it front and
Mimikyu, yep.
center. So all Mimikyu themed items and sleeves, and there's a promo where he's just chilling on a bench with a
Yeah.
blanket.
I think
It
the
looks awesome.
ETBs are cool. The promo, I'm not the biggest fan of the promo. Um, it looks quaint. I get that. I'm just not a fan of it.
It's cool in a sense, like, it's just kind of chilling with the grandma
Yeah.
sewing.
Yeah.
It should have been darker. Like in the games, there's can't remember exactly how the story goes, but pretty much I want to say like Mimikyu's like in this haunted mansion and pretty much like very creepy acting and giving the illusion that it's like a little girl and you're like talking to this girl in this hidden mansion and it's like Mimikyu all along. Like they could have did some dark vibes there. But yeah, it's an interesting artwork, kind of a peaceful little artwork there. But love the product. Probably won't open any because I'm just stubborn. But
We'll see. We'll see. I might open something if there's something that really pops out at me. I imagine the art rares that they're going to have with this are going to be pretty popping. We'll probably by next episode. Let's see how. So this one's going live the 19th, but the next one will be the 3rd. Yeah, so it comes out the 1st. So yeah, we'll have we'll be recording by the 1st. So yeah, we'll have all the art rares by then to be able to go through and go over. And I'm expected
on the
some really
Japanese
big
side,
things.
anyway.
What?
I said on the Japanese side, anyway,
Oh
because
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
Japanese releases on the 1st. So
Yeah, and I'm excited for this set because I think this could be the best set since V-Star Universe. So it's been, 12 months, I guess, a year. So the best set all year, essentially.
yeah, not counting 151.
Yeah, I mean that one was pretty good, but I mean there were some good cards over there, but that one I wasn't inspired over it essentially. Mainly because the rehashing of the Kanto and just the Kanto gets tiresome. Just look at the Pokemon collection box and how that fared. Um,
I don't know.
eh,
It's pretty big. Probably the biggest set of the last 2 years, I'd say.
I mean, people went after it because 151 it tugs at the nostalgia strings, and there's definitely some good cards. Most notably, the Kanto Legendary Birds and Giovanni, and a few other good ones. Not saying that it's not good. I'm just saying I'm over it as an aspect
Yeah.
with the 151.
Yep. Well, we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what this one brings in.
Yeah, it'll definitely be hype. Definitely heading into the holidays, getting all that new flavor hype. I think next year is going to really shape up to be much more interesting as far as the
Yep.
mainline sets go.
I think they're going to take it to the next level next year because technically it
Yeah.
would be year 2. And I think that's when we saw year 2 is when we saw so it would have been Battle Styles, which would have been 2021. Yep, that sounds about right. So yeah, about year 2, I think we're going to see something a little bit new next year.
Yeah. And yeah, just like we said, first few sets are a little boring. Things are going to ramp up a little bit, especially after 151 and Paldean Fates. They're going to have to keep the dopamine going and sprinkle in a little something extra for the new year.
Yeah.
So, yep, pretty cool though. Last little bit of news I had, I guess aside from the drama, we'll mention the drama real briefly after this, but
Yeah.
I guess let's go ahead and mention it now, and I'll do my last little bit of flash news before we jump in. But yeah, to not go into many details,
No.
we'll just kind of say like who it's between, but the Coffee Talks podcast with DJ Gigabyte and Dave Person released an episode last week, 2 episodes now. They did a follow-up episode. Really going into problems they've had in the hobby. You guys may have seen the pre-release Raichu graded. Not only one, but 2 of them. Both of them belonging to Dave Person, who is without a doubt, in my mind, the most complete English collection of all time. He literally has every single English card, just about all airs, all variants, cards you never heard of, including the pre-release Raichu.
V's. Yeah, the English V set.
Yep, English. VS. 2 sets because there's 2 variants of those. Every single World's trophy card dating all the way back to the 90s. So not only does he own a trophy card, but every single trophy card from like 1999 up until 2023. He just recently completed his 2023 goal. So yeah, pretty insane. Podcast is super interesting. DJ Gigabyte, Dan, he's one of the most knowledgeable people in the hobby by far. He kind of goes under the radar. He's essentially Dave's liaison for all these cards. And it makes sense, having someone like DJ Gigabyte in the hobby helping you with your collection. Just makes sense if you're a collector and as wealthy as you are on Dave's caliber. So just to mention, Dave is like vastly probably one of the most successful people in the hobby, but not because of the hobby. It's outside of the hobby. So just keep that in mind, like why he has all this stuff. He's in his 50s, pushing 60 now. So
I think he said 62, but he doesn't look it. But that's what that big money does. But
can afford all those treatments and everything.
Well, I mean, I think he lives out in the West Coast too, so it has the easy, like, chill lifestyle. With the winter does wear down on anybody's physical well-being.
Yeah.
And just the lack of taking care of yourself occurs in the Midwest in the winter. But essentially, his net worth, I mean, I don't even want to throw it around. I have no idea, but I would guess outside, like, not even including Pokemon, his net worth is over 20 million. Just to put that into perspective, and it could be even more. Not including the Pokemon. I want to reiterate that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he's definitely well off, and also one of the sweetest guys in the hobby. He really, every time I message him, he responds back. I've actually done a video where I've had him on, and he goes out of his way to help people and get on people's channels. We did an hour-long plus talk, or just me and him just chit-chatting. This was peak hype, so he had plenty of other things I'm sure he could have been doing. But yeah, enough said about them. They are legit. That's what we're trying to get at. They raise concerns with a few other names in the hobby. Some things were said that could potentially have more outcomes in the future. So if you guys want to know who those were about, just go watch the video. There's a lot of beef about the Elite Forum and kind of people who run that, and a lot of other definitely well-known people in the hobby. I mean, if you're listening to us, you're pretty deep in this hobby. So if you're listening to us, you probably know some of these names, but there's 2 sides to every story. There's definitely some shady stuff going on, is from what it sounds like. As far as relocating the website and going behind people's backs for other deals and stuff like that. But it was a young hobby, and people are just trying to make the best of their situation, and people have poor judgment time to time. So I think that's literally a case of this, and it's a lot of he said, she said. But for instance, I trust them fully, but I also trust some of the people they talk about to some extent. But I will say, out of everyone that has mentioned, everybody that I've interacted with in the situation has treated me right. So I really have no side, but there's definitely been some shakeups. And then
Yeah,
discussions about overall content, like a certain person who likes to make negative clickbaity content for the drama. Lot there's which that's a whole topic in itself. You know, I'm very much for the positive type and positive vibe, but yeah, there's some people out there who are just trying to make a name for themselves.
and it very after reading like the post in response on the Elite Forum in response to the Coffee Talk podcast, there's definitely more than one side to this. And, they provide analytics, which analytics can be used for, I mean, to control a narrative, but doesn't complete the narrative. Um, and there's definitely been things that have been shown and discussed that support some of the issues that they discuss on the coffee table podcast. Now, that doesn't mean that makes somebody more right than the other. It just you kind of see some of the ugliness and immaturity of some people, which you know what, like I can't fault that if you've grown from that as a person, because I'll be the first one to tell you I've had some negative experiences. I've been the person that have created negative interactions. I've been stubborn and I've created negative interactions. It's happened locally with stupid stuff like Pokemon Go, for example. You know, um, just you get caught up in the moment, you get stubborn, you get defensive, and you just kind of get carried away. And eventually gets to the point where you might spat back and forth. That's why it's like, I can see the negatives of somebody from a situation like that, but I also understand it because I've been in that side. Now, have you grown from that as a person? That's something that we can't really say for sure. Maybe they haven't. Sometimes what you get from successful people is they like to smell their own shit so much that they don't ever see through that.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it's like everybody can grow, people can legitimately change, but will the person make that stance to go ahead and do that? That's something that you don't know. But at this point, it just looks like a he said she said. Unless they got proof, and they're going to do a lawsuit. In my opinion, they should just they've spoken their mind. They've talked about their experiences of it. In my opinion, unless they have proof to support everything they're saying, they should just kind of let it rest and let it be.
Yeah. And in a way, that's what they're doing. Like, obviously, they want to get the info out there. And a lot of
Yep.
this spawned from, well, it pretty much all spawned from the pre release Raichu. And that's kind of
Hmm.
what started it. Basically, these people who don't have a copy or wanted to get a copy are like the legitimacy of the Raichu is what it was. Right. So there was one person talked about who wanted to pay up like 15,000 for one of these copies 10 years ago, which was
Yeah.
like big money, huge money back then.
Hmm.
And he did not win the auction because Dave found out about it. His person who middlemaned all these deals got wind, and he ended up buying it. So it is what it is. More money, more power. So you can have your own opinions on that, but I can't say I agree with that really fully either. But I guess you can do what you want when you got the money. But that individual then went on to say like, "Oh, it's illegitimate," you know.
Which is immature.
Yeah, and it's
When you know
basically
for a
because
fact it's
I didn't get my copy. I lost the one copy that I was trying for, so now it's not a legit card.
that's childish and that shows immaturity. So that's one of those things where, but it was also he was probably a teenager, early 20s. So we can all attest we were all dipshits when we were early 20s. If you don't think you were, then you're probably still a dipshit now. I mean,
Yeah,
that's the only thing you can really say to that. So I mean, and again, you can be competitive, and I get it, okay. And I would be furious if somebody did that to me, especially if somebody who I considered an acquaintance slash friend. I would be furious if somebody did that. Like you saw when we were talking about D100 boxes, what did I do? I was like, hey, if you're not gonna, are you gonna pull the trigger on that or not? I asked you each time, because I didn't want to snipe it from you, and I know if the roles were reversed, I know I would be pissed,
yeah, yeah. That's
and
that's my problem with that situation too. It's like if you've already got one, it's like okay, like are you just being being the corporate bully now, and just it's like, yeah, essentially you are. Which I understand why, but yeah, if it was a friend, then yeah, two sides of every story, like we said.
Hmm.
It's there's a lot to it, and they did go pretty hard on their videos. Because even watching it, I'm like, man, this is like
The first one, yep.
it
I
was.
haven't watched the second one yet, though.
Second one's not as much. They go
Okay.
into kind of specific people a little more,
Okay.
maybe, but kind of deserved. Like basically their reaction videos, they're reacting to the reaction videos of the reaction, you know. So it's not as bad as that first one, but yeah, the first one I almost got like uncomfortable watching it. It's like,
Yes,
man, this
yes,
is like
because
supposed to be like a positive hobby, and their podcast overall, all 36 episodes before that were very positive, but then it just felt misplaced. And they actually made a point on the second one that, they're wanting to be positive and they're not going to make any other videos totally dedicated to it. So
yeah, that's good. They should just let it be out there and go from there because there were times where it was like person in particular, you can tell he was passionate. I understand why he was frustrated too. Like imagine if something you one of your most cherished hobbies. Imagine if I was telling you your first edition, Charizard was fake, and I was letting everybody know. And it all stems back because 10 years ago or 5 years ago, whenever you bought that, you sniped it from under me. That's where the vendetta came from.
yeah,
I can understand him taking it personal. Okay, 100%. And you can tell, this is where he vents within the hobby. So that's why he probably wasn't able to tell anybody. For him, it was probably cathartic to an extent, right? Totally understandable.
and even with
But
him and his collection, like they are very small, like YouTube channel, like under
mhm,
2,000. So
yep,
yeah, there's not, should have tens of thousands, but that's just nature of YouTube. If you're not doing the O face and doing all this crazy stuff, you're just not going to get subscribers. But
yep,
as far as knowledge to subscriber ratio, that is the best podcast. Like as far as knowledge and how many subs they have,
yeah.
for
Like
sure.
it's actually going to be added to my list of shows when I watched it because I did like a lot of what Person was talking about. I loved his attitude. I love his positivity, and even people are people, right? Even if you're a positive person, that doesn't mean you're going to have your down days. It doesn't mean you're going to have negative thoughts or negative sentences, negative words from time to time. Now, it's about the, plurality of your actions and worlds that make folks' perception of you overall. Although, first interaction can make huge opinions, but
Yeah.
the whole point is, he leaned in, and just as he was about to lean all the way in, he leaned back. What I mean by that is there were times where I felt like you were saying, it was getting highly aggressive. Like if that were a conversation in the same room, things would have gotten physical if the tone was kept at what it was. But I mean, I kind of got that vibe. I did. Like
Yeah.
he was passionate. I totally felt that. But then he leaned back, and he also another thing I noticed was he didn't try to insult. He just was saying his opinions on it and what he saw as the facts of it as well. He refrained from saying personal anecdotes, one that apparently could have been severe, and he refrained from doing that, which, in my opinion, speaks about the quality of character. If it were that bad, it could quote unquote end somebody's career or completely mess up somebody's life. He didn't lean into that. He didn't insult. He just spoke his opinion about it without going ad hominem on this. I think that speaks about the quality of character, but when you're watching it, you're like, oh shit. Like I mean, it got intense at times, but that's why I watched the whole entire thing.
And you'll see more of that character in the second one too. He definitely lays it out. He even questions Dan, like if he's overreacting or if what he's saying was actually true. So also has a lawyer background, so he's in the financial world, but he has a law degree. So that's where a lot of that comes from. So yeah,
And yeah,
overall nice dude though, like super
mm-hmm.
pleasurable, and all their other episodes are great. Very positive. He's acquiring these like once in a lifetime cards like multiple times a month anytime there's like a new worlds, and he's just like the most humble guy. And it wasn't even until like a couple weeks ago when he got these cards graded where he's finally like showing off more of his stuff because people have been dying to see it. During COVID, he made some videos because he couldn't. He was stuck at home, so now he's sharing a little more of his collection. I think he shared even some disco hollows. That's a whole nother thing. Like an
Mm-hmm.
episode before
Another
this, they were
foils.
talking
Yeah.
about like how they had a disco print base sheet, like disco hollow,
Mm-hmm.
and they cut that up and got that graded. And TCA Gaming bought a few, and they've all distributed. And there's been some shade on that about cutting up sheets, but yeah, there's just a lot to unpack. You guys just got to go see it.
Yeah.
We've went on about it just a little too much here, just mentioning it, but there's a lot to it. But in finishing up, told you we had a lot. There's a lot of news that happened.
Juicy.
We were gonna record 5 days ago, and if we did that, we would have missed like all of this. So
Yeah.
kind of sucks that we have to do it the Friday before we go live on Sunday, but definitely worth it for the news this week. It pays off when we
Yep.
do it.
The only thing, honestly, the only thing
Yeah.
I want to say real fast, I don't. It's just a small tidbit, but did you all see the Tiffany and Pokemon collaboration that they're doing? How ridiculous that is! 29,000 for a zombie Pikachu. Okay, all right.
Yeah, little too much there. It's like, all right, come on now, don't toot your own horn too much.
Not even made from solid gold. If it's 29,000, it better be not just made from gold, but also handcrafted. Okay, and it's neither.
Yeah, yeah, that was kind of crazy. I like, I just looked at it. I'm like, well, it's not stunning. 29,000.
No,
Yeah,
it looks
right.
weird even.
And that's
It
all I
looks
looked at
weird.
it.
So they better. I hope they make less than 1,000 if they even make that much, because their
Shoot, they
market's
should
going to
make
be
like
very.
50 of them at that
Yeah,
price.
yeah. I'd say they're. Yeah, they should make a very limited run because the amount of people wanting. I'll tell you right now, if you buy that, the resale value on this in 5 years, if you can find one, ain't going to be anything. Because
Yeah.
ultimately, it's not worth its weight in silver, platinum, or gold or whatever.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's valuable just because of the name brand, and it always
Yep.
will be, but it's not going to go crazy,
Mm.
you know, potentially even come down a little bit.
I bet you will see Logan Paul with the complete line on his next whatever WWF or whatever that is. I don't watch that shit, but whatever it is, he'll have it. It'll be funny. It'll be funny to me. It'll be like ridiculous, but to each their own.
You need to have the illustrator that he overpaid $3 million for lined with the diamonds with the Tiffany jewelry hanging off of it. That's what
Yeah,
you need.
like that was definitely an overpay, and we even discussed it. And David Person even said on that podcast, like we knew there was more than the 39 or 40 that were believed to exist, and he believes, and it's pretty much well known amongst a lot of the big boys that it's potentially double that, which makes sense.
We're seeing a lot of them pop up.
Yep, it makes sense because they probably made more than the expected winners that they were going to hand out for obvious reasons.
And there's been, people have been tuned for years. The rarest cards are like certain trophies when they
No, yeah,
like only
for
did
sure.
like certain years, or the English VS series, stuff like that. Or even the disco hollow cards, maybe there was only a few sheets of those made, but it's definitely way more things, like more rare than the illustrator. It's just kind of became the poster boy of the trophy cards. So, and it is probably the coolest one. I like it more than the trophy cards, the OG trophy cards, but it is what it
Yeah, I
is.
mean, it is better, but I don't really care for the art.
Yeah.
Even if I had the money, I don't know if I would ever get it.
Yeah. One more bit about tiny
One
bad
more.
news, one more bit of good news. We're getting there. We're getting there. Uh, Van Gogh Museum Pikachu. Just be aware there have been tons of fakes hitting the market apparently. We've
I
been
saw that.
seeing this even with Lorcana's D23 Mickey. Just the fact like it's a plain card, just like Van Gogh. We're starting to see special cards like this get better fakes faster and more quantity. So there's definitely people out there taking advantage of these, especially cards that are real simple, no hollow pattern, no texture. So you really got to be careful with that. Seems like the majority of the fakes have been pretty similar. There's been a Reddit article. It's going around on E4. There's some spacing things that you can look at on the copyright at the bottom of Pikachu. It has like 2023 Pokemon Nintendo creatures Game Freak. And between all those words, there's a space. It's like Pokemon space slash space Nintendo space slash space creatures and so on. On the fakes, all those spaces are gone, so it's like Pokemon slash Nintendo slash. So that's one thing to keep an eye out for. So yeah, you want spaces on both sides of the slashes. There's one other thing people pointed out on the actual card, but I know a lot of fakes that are coming sealed on the white card, like the insert card that just tells you what it is. There's like a country code on there of some kind where it's like a black flap and it says FR for like France or something like that. On the fakes, a lot of those don't have the FR on them. So there's points out there. So keep an eye out. Do your research if you're buying these raw. Fakes have definitely been running through the market. Last little bit of news. Good news. I am the newest owner / winner of the Poncho Megazord X Pikachu. So this is something you were asking about at the top of the podcast. I said, just hang on a minute.
Did you get the 9 or the 10?
I got the 10.
Oh, well, was it an auction or was it a? I wasn't paying attention. There was an auction ending.
It was an auction, but I did kind of slightly overpay for it. I was in the heat of the moment. I'm like, this one is nice. It's the newest cert that I've seen so far. It's like an 8.3 cert.
Oh wow,
So
that's like in the last month.
Yeah. So it's very clean, very new, very shiny. I just jumped on it. The last sale I had was on eBay at like 4,600 basically. I won this one at 4,950. It made sense. I was watching some Marios. Marios have went up a little bit since that 4,500 sale of the Poncho. So I knew this one was probably, 45 was the bottom in my opinion. And literally 49.55 was my max. And I won it for 49.50 right at the end. So
That's still pretty good. They were going up for 6,000-7,000 during the hype. So I mean, 5,000 for the most sought after. And if you like you were saying, you apply it to the PSA 10 Mario. Honestly, it might be an overpay technically on what the market was, but overall, I think in the grand scheme of things in the last year, it wasn't that bad.
yeah, and about a month ago, I bought the Mario from Jim Mint. Paid 5,200 for that, and it's pushing like 58 now.
Yep.
In the same time period. So for this one to only jump 400 and the Mario to jump more, I mean, I think pretty ballpark price. But yeah, from the summer hype of all those Japanese cards, we definitely seen them crash way hard, but they're starting to heat up again because they stabilized and people are like, okay, this is probably the new low, and people are buying them again. This one ended at 7:50 or 11:54 today. So a random weekday, random time around lunch. Terrible time, and it still went for that. So
just like that Stitch that sold just like 2 weeks ago, just after my Stitch sold, the guy, you can tell he was pretty new to selling, low rating on eBay, had all these sets. You and I were talking about how the downward slope was beginning for the D23. I got all mine off quick, and the last I checked, which has been a couple of days, most of mine litter the non-Mickey 10 sales on the 130 point when you can look at them. So that says something. So I think they're going to slip in there 10-15%. But anyway, the guy, Monday afternoon, or was it Tuesday? I might have been. I think it was a Monday afternoon, or it was an afternoon, weekday afternoon at like 3 or 4 o'clock. Terrible timing. Sold for under 2,500. Terrible timing.
Yeah.
The timing matters when your thing ends. Even if it's a hot market item, it matters. You got to have it end between 7 and 10 on any given night.
Well, I was thinking that with this poncho, which maybe if it was on a Friday night, it would have broke 5,000, but it
Well,
went it went for more than I expected. I was pretty set on 4,800, and then I put in a bid like with 10 seconds left, and I saw it got beat. That kind of goes into my question a little bit later, some eBay strategies, but
yeah, oh yeah, for
um,
sure.
yeah, I put it in. I always put one in a little early to kind of see where the max is, and then I'll put one final one in. Um, but yeah, I put 55 because a lot of people do round numbers as well. So I always do like anywhere from like $2 to $5 above. So instead of 50, I did 55, and I won it for 50 because I went 55. But yeah, it's hard to say with taxes. I mean, I ended up doing like 5,200. Um, there's a guy on Instagram who's not very well known who was selling one for 5, so probably could have got a little better deal somewhere else. But this is also all those factors considered. This has been like the card that always eluded me. You know, I've always wanted this card. This is the only like Grail card on my Grail list that I've never owned, like for myself. So it's just I bit the bullet. I'm like, if there's any card I'm gonna pay up for, it's this. So I just went for it. Um, Definitely a good feeling. I did sell a lot of my first editions. I still have a small stack of those. I still have all my gold stars that I could potentially sell. But with this card purchased, and I still have the Mimikyu, and then, selling the Mario to you, I'll probably work through the rest of those first editions and get that Mimikyu 10, and then probably chill out for a while. Um, I just want to enjoy my gold stars a little more, I think, that I have them all graded and as a whole set. So I need to decide, like, which ones am I selling? Do I want to go after the gold stars in higher grade? What am I looking at for, like, a base set Charizard for upgrading there? So lots of options. So I'm just going to get that Scream Mimikyu and go with that. Or even if I, like, sell all the gold stars, like, do I just get like a 7 or 8 Charizard, and then with that extra money, I could like buy all the Scream cards and a couple more ponchos? Like, I just have so many options right now that I just need
Mo
to.
money, mo options.
I just need to chill out. I need to sell this Mimikyu and the rest of the first editions, get that Mimikyu, and then hold for a while. So exciting times! Can't wait to get that card in. It's gonna be in my PC forever. Yeah, super excited. With that, I think we're done with the news. Might
Taking
be
a
our
while.
longest
Well, this
news
one's more
section.
of a kind of a hodgepodge episode because I don't think the main topic's really that much to make a whole episode on, but it's definitely enough to have a great conversation on.
Yeah, essentially, like we kind of got into it a little bit, but yeah, let's jump on in. So we did a lot of Lorcana talk. We'll try. Obviously, we're going to talk about Lorcana a little more in this because it is Pokemon's magic. Can it
Mm-hmm.
be recreated or replicated, or can the magic pop up again? Can we have another Pokemon? Like, will Pokemon be topped? So obviously, a lot of Lorcana talk, as well as maybe some One Piece and Magic the Gathering. We did this talk before, but kind of revisiting it now, especially since Lorcana seems to be like the biggest threat in the long
Mm-hmm.
term. It's not a threat now, but with the interest that they have and the quality of the cards and the IP, if we're looking out 20 years, like Lorcana is probably the most likely IP and product to at least match somewhat of what Pokemon has done. Um, but yeah, we'll get into the extent of that. So, short answer though, I'm gonna say no. What about you?
I'm gonna say yes.
Okay.
Now, yeah, I'm gonna say yes. And now, can we? Will it be a yes 100%? Maybe not quite. Maybe like a yes 75, 80%, which is still good enough to say yes. Which is kind of the boat where I'm sitting at, with my opinion. We are seeing it to an extent, right? Now with Lorcana. Now here's the thing that Lorcana lacks. Yes, they take from already existing IPs, but they lack a show. They also lack a game. Now here's why I think that's important. Because it needs to reach the youngest generation. Right now it's not really. I mean it is, but at the same time it isn't really because of the cost and the availability of these products up until this week. It's been almost impossible to get, and most people aren't going to spend $300 for a booster box of something that they never even opened before. That's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And especially for somebody who's trying to buy it for their kids. So we've discussed it before. You don't really think so much so, but I think what can take it to the next level is a show. Something on Disney Plus that can reach, that has all these IPs in its own universe. Something where, and have it where be like a decent kids show. It absolutely could reach that youngest generation and create more of a hype with that young generation. So I think it's possible, and I think we've seen it to an extent with Lorcana right now in terms of the hype. We haven't seen this with any other TCG that has came out. And no, I don't include MetaZoo because that was pushed by YouTubers and people's own social circle was pretty much, your own bubble was making you think that because it never was like that. It never reached that big. It was all a hype. It was all based on hype. Um, and I believe everything's there for Lorcana. Now that they've got enough product, it looks like for this wave at the very least, it's going to sell out. It's all going to be opened. But they have enough product to get through, and there's going to be another wave. I wouldn't be surprised if there's another wave before the end of the year. We're already going to have big box stores. We're going to have it. So we are going to see at least one more wave because of that alone. And we're going to see more in January for set one.
Yeah.
So the product at that point, yes, it's expensive, and it's going to be like that for a little bit. That's just how it's going to be. It might be like that for upwards of a year till they get printing down. And I think if they can get a show and maybe even later down a game of some sort, they can really take it to the next level. Now, it depends if Disney feels like doing that because they take a lot of huge losses this year with their Marvel flops, their live action remake flops. I mean, they had like 7 or 8 in a row, I think. I think Elemental, which was great, but by the way, that might have been the really only good movie this year, unless somebody else can think of another one. But in Elemental, it was right in between like Barbenheimer. So because of that, it hurt. But what made it good was it was a like the only family movie during the summer, and it just kept on going in terms of like its overall gross sales. And then it hit Disney Plus, and it really got its acclaim that it deserved. It's one of Pixar's best movies in a long time.
Yeah.
And anyways, the whole point is if Disney decides to invest in this a little bit more with the show, it can definitely take it to even the next level. Now, I know that's if, but that's why my answer is yes, but to an extent.
Yeah, my biggest thing with the show is that they already have them. Like they have the movies that's pretty much enough to drive them. I do think that if we look at Pokemon for example, the show is just like adventure driven. You see all the Pokemon. It's like a kids show and then kids bought it. The biggest thing with Lorcana is that I feel like the age, like the way they made the game, they wanted to make it more playable, and I think it's like much more advanced than Pokemon. It's not just like addition, subtraction. There's like a lot of more strategy in there. Um, so I really think even the target audience of Lorcana is slightly older than what Pokemon was back in the day. And if you look at as far as the play events, like we said earlier, there's a lot of parents or a lot of people our age playing it because it's people who have come from Magic rather than Pokemon for a lot of it because it does have a lot of Magic similarities. So if they create a show, like, do they create a show kind of childish like Pokemon, or do they create a show for a slightly older generation? Um,
Well,
it's kind of in a weird spot. Like, I feel like the type of show they would make doesn't fit really the demographic of what the cards are. And maybe that'll change when more product is on the shelves and like it's genuine kids who want it and they just buy the cards just because. But I don't know. It's
well,
hard to say.
yeah. I mean, so I understand where you're coming from, but here's where I disagree, and it's because of so Lorcana is its own lore, right? Its own universe. And they've really been pushing it. I saw Lorcana had another thing about expanded lore within the Lorcana universe, and it's unique enough to create a show on it, pulling from existing IPs. And yes, they pull from a lot of existing movies with a lot of the artwork. They do absolutely, but at the same time, they can really elevate it by making it its own show and its own IP in its own right. And now, will they do that? Like as you said with the demographic, that is to an extent true. Because if you look at a lot of the cars that they had in the first chapter, it was a lot of millennial driven artwork. Wouldn't you say? But by that I mean movies and media that we grew up as kids, right? So you had the Lion King,
Yeah, a
now
lot
the
of the older
Frozen.
icons. Yeah.
Yeah, now Frozen was a little bit different with Elsa, but a lot of millennials love Frozen too because of when the first one came out. That first one came out when we were still in college, you know?
Yeah, and
So
it's
we
even
still,
if it's like we were old for that movie, like it has become like the Lion King of the new generation. It was
yep,
the biggest for the longest time.
yep.
You
And
couldn't
it was the
escape it.
biggest
Like,
animated movie.
yeah, you couldn't escape it because of all the kids singing it. And if you're out in the store, you see Elsa everywhere.
Yep,
It just became the biggest. So even if you don't like the movies or despise Disney, or you're a 60-year-old who hasn't had any kids or family, like, you probably know who Elsa is.
yep.
You know,
So, but a lot of the other stuff, it had some Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, Alice in Wonderland, all these movies that most people, if you're 10 years old, a lot of these kids probably haven't experienced yet. Um, And based on what we saw with set two, it was still a lot like that. There was some Jungle Book, and some of their enchanter rares were pretty questionable that they chose, in my opinion. They really missed the mark with not having a Winnie the Pooh one, especially. Um, but anyways, besides the point of critiquing the set two artwork and like the actual cards, they are still pulling from a lot of their non-current IPs. By that I mean, like, they're not pulling from a lot of Pixar yet, a lot of some of the younger movies, but or more recently released movies, and some of that, in my opinion, is because, well, guess what? Most of the movies in the last decade that Disney's released have been live action remakes. Okay, beyond certain Pixar movies, most of Disney's creativity, if you will, has been pretty much non-existent since the first Jungle Book live action, which was great in my opinion, but overall, a lot of them have been missed.
yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to think about. I mean, even if Lorcana takes the same path and trajectory of Pokemon, like like you said, the second set is definitely lackluster compared to the first, which is kind of to be expected. But I'm also
Yeah,
surprised at how much they've branched out in so little time. Like, they've really branched out a lot already. Um, and yeah, I wondered if they were gonna do like certain sets, certain theme, like Lion King theme and all this, but it seems like they're just hitting everything, just kind of wherever they want. So
I could see them eventually down the road doing it, but I think they're trying to get a wide variety of both IPs within under the Disney umbrella, and they're trying to really expand the breadth of what they're trying to do. I could see them down the road making specific subset theme sets like a Lion King set. But if they're keeping these 200 card sets plus enchanteds, that's going to be very difficult unless they decrease the size of the sets, which is something that they might have to do down the road because starting off your sets with 212 cards is a lot, but it's necessary for the game to succeed.
Yeah, maybe they do like a huge set for like the first few and then really tone it down because yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like, yeah, they have tons of movies and tons of things to pull from, but look at Pokemon for instance. They have to have repeat cards.
Hmm.
They just change it up a little bit, and they have thousands of Pokemon to pull from. If you count just like one movie, I mean, Disney probably has hundreds of stuff to pull from for each movie they make. So the content is there, but like they're eventually going to reach a point where they've hit everything, and they're also like releasing, the same character cards, just maybe a different color or slight tweaks or a better version of them. So that's something they could do, which that's exactly what Pokemon does. You have a Charizard, normal hollow, then a Charizard EX that's a little better. So they got plenty of stuff to work with for now, but when they're 20 years old, it's like, do they create like 100 movies every couple years and then just keep pulling new stuff? Because Pokemon, whenever they're running out of ideas, they're like, well, let's just release another 100 Pokemon. They can
Hmm.
create whatever they want. And
Hell,
like,
at this point with Pokemon, they can create a generation from rejected Pokemon.
yeah. And like Disney can't quite do that. Like their cards aren't really these imaginary creatures that they can just make up out of thin air. Like maybe they could. Like that'd be interesting if we ever see a card that isn't a Disney movie related. Ooh, I was just thinking, what if
But
something in the lore of Lorcana created something that was like
yep,
magical creatures within the universe? So then they
which
could
would
start making cards about these magical creatures that aren't even tied to the movies, hence
which
creating Pokemon.
and if you will, that's where having a show can come in, pushing these new characters and new IPs towards the newest generation.
Yeah, I never thought about that aspect. So
So,
they could
like the
create a
ability,
Pokemon within Magic or
and
within
there,
Disney's
that's the
universe.
whole thing. You can they mentioned Ravensburger mentioned several times, so it's going to be unique art to the universe. So what they can do, I mean, is endless. They can do, and I hope they don't do this anytime soon, but they could even branch out to potentially Star Wars characters and Marvel characters. But I'd be very careful on that, and that's something they shouldn't do for at least 5 years,
Kingdom
at least.
Hearts.
But Kingdom Hearts is different because they partnered from years ago. In many ways, I mean, it's a collaboration, right? And
Square Enix would want to get in on the action though.
yeah, I mean, which they have a
Kingdom Hearts had
partnership.
its own TCG.
Yep. They would, I could see them doing that down the road as well. We're talking year three, maybe year four, something a little bit more down the road. I could see them doing it after the initial wave calms down, just like we saw with Pokemon, right? They had after a few years, they had the wave within 2 or 3 years, they had the wave just die down. A lot of that was because of kids, and that's why it died down. Um, Now, if they can do something to where it engages interests, something like specific sets, like what we mentioned with Frozen or Kingdom Hearts, can create a new spike of interest and new individuals coming into the hobby. So, but they should stay away from Marvel and Star Wars because both of them have had their own TCGs and their own cards. And I think Marvel just released they just released a set, I thought, of something. Um, but yeah, I mean, because they can really do pretty much anything that they can imagine with it, and it's really important to engage the younger generation, like you mentioned with a lot of millennials. It seems where they're targeting. Well, they need in order to thrive, they need to reach both adults and kids, literally of all ages.
Yeah, it would be weird. They would have to make it slightly more mature, but they would have to build out the world a lot more. Because right now it's just like you're a Lumineer and you're just drawing these inks and they come alive. But like, what's the lore behind that? why are you drawing these things? You know, are you battling with people, or are you fighting something else entirely? It'd be a weird. It'd be a weird show, but I mean, there's been weirder shows.
Yep.
But my biggest thing overall is the kids thing. You know, if you, like I was about to say, if you follow Pokemon's trajectory, even if Lorcana does okay and follows that same path and heats up, it's like there's so much nostalgia for Pokemon and the kids, specifically us, like back in the day, buying the cards as kids. And like that's where our nostalgia connection is. And there's some kids interested in Lorcana, but it's pretty much only because their parents are. There's very
Mm-hmm.
rarely that I've seen, like you'll see some posts about it where kids are interested and kids want them, but they can't find them. But yeah, it's like most people playing now are in their upper teens or 20s because they're into TCGs, they know the hype, they're into Magic, they collect Pokemon, and it's just the next thing to check out. But like 20 years from now, like for me, for example, like I'm sure I'll have some Lorcana nostalgia. I'm building out a binder set for the first chapter, but that's all I really care about because it'll be cool to look back on like the first cards. I don't really care to own a booster box because of the print quality, lack of shrink wrap, and even the lack of the box flaps because you can straight up turn it upside down and shake packs out. Um, and
And
that's
that's
another
where the
thing. Like people are just hoarding this just because of what it is. It's a new exciting TCG. So how much of that is authentic? You know, out of the gate, it's kind of like a money game, and people playing capitalist tycoon on getting their boxes, and how much of it is legit, how much of that is keeping it from the kids, you know, quite a lot because kids can't
I would
even
say
find it in
so.
stores.
I would say the reason why kids
So,
haven't been interested in it is because they haven't been able to experience it, or even they don't even know it exists yet. If
yeah.
your parents don't know it exists, yeah, but they haven't been able to see it. What we had as kids was the show and the game. That is what it got us with the TCG. See, Lorcana doesn't have that. You need to reach the younger generation to obtain that, and that's why I think a show is a must at some point,
Yeah, it
and
needs to be
sooner rather
like
than
a
later.
Kingdom Hearts style show or game
Yeah.
where they like pull from everything and like create their own storyline, and
Hmm.
which something of that nature is kind of unheard of. It was unheard of when Kingdom Hearts did it, but now look at that fan base, you know, which I'm a part of. I love those games.
Yeah, me too. I put over 50 hours on Kingdom Hearts too.
I've yeah, I put more than that on both of them.
Well, I mean, I like 100% of the game around there with like 50, 60 hours. So it was like, I don't need to play anymore.
Oh
So,
yeah, I would 100% the game, build the ultimate weapon. I did it in 1 and 2, and then I bought the remakes of 1 and I did it again. And then I played 3 and like completely 100% of that too. Got the ultimate weapon before the final boss. I replayed 1 last year about this time actually, and I've been wanting to play 2 again, but it's a lot of time commitment. Two's much
hmm.
longer.
And for me, my thing with games is I inevitably lose interest nowadays. I might have a few weekends, maybe a month, and then I'll just get something where I need to do and just not do it.
Yeah, I've been a little more picky with my games.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't have the patience. Like, for example, like my downtime, yes, we're doing this episode, but for the past since New York, I've been editing photos. Like, not every week because there's been other things I've had to do on the weekends, but most of my free weekends outside one or two, I've been working on photos because there's that many to go through, that many to organize. We're talking, 5 to 7 hours a week. Well, I mean, yes, I also read comics and stuff as a part of the free time, but trying to wedge games in there, I mean, it's going to take away from the editing process. And, I got a lot of photos to edit from previous shoots, like upwards of a year and a half back, I still haven't done.
Yeah.
So it's just like I feel guilty.
Yep. I feel guilty. Like I really enjoy games still, but I don't know when I'm really into a game. Like a lot of other stuff just kind of doesn't take priority, and so like I prefer to just play games, but then overall, like my mood is just kind of like not like depressing, but like I'm just kind of unproductive. But I'm having fun on this, so I might as well just keep playing. So it's kind of that mindset thing for me. So I know that I get into games pretty heavily, so I really try to limit what I get into. Just like with Pokemon Go back in the day when I totally quit and all that business. Sold my first account actually. So it's just a weird relationship I have, but I actually got pretty lucky with that Go account. I think I sold it for like $1,000 or something, which was pretty good. It was a level 40 account with like a decent amount of shinies, a lot of old stuff, but I mean, I'm pretty sure you can buy like a level 50 account now for $1,000. Like 40 accounts
Well,
or nothing.
yeah, I mean, my account, I'm sure if somebody really wanted it, I don't think I even have a name change left, so that's the issue. But I mean, I would like again, in order, somebody would have to give me 20 to 25 thousand dollars to make it even worth it, and nobody would probably do that.
Yeah.
So that's why, like that's the number where you can get to me where we can start talking about it.
Yep. A lot of time in that one. And a lot of it is a
Hmm.
time thing. Like, yeah, if I counted all the time and stuff that I had in the account, like 1,000 was pretty cheap, but I thought of it as a way like I'm gonna keep playing this game, so I might as well like cut the cord like harshly. And this was many years ago before COVID, and so like it's just like, well, if I can get $1,000 for it, let's go for it. And then yeah, like I said, now you can buy like a level 40 account for like $50 because
So easy.
yeah, well,
I mean,
people
yeah,
just run programs where they just level it up real
catch.
quick,
Yep.
which is kind of another discussion in Pokemon Go in general, but still fun just to mess around on. I just take it way less seriously.
Yep, that's the way to do it. Like I play, I probably play 2 hours a day overall. A lot of it helps
Which
me.
that's quite a bit for average people, though.
See, for me, that includes like the
For
when
you,
I'm
it's
playing it
not,
at
but
work. Well, for me, for like playing it at work before and after work, like I mean, honestly, it's really not that much. Like before work, it gets me alert, and it's like having a morning coffee. Like it gets my mind mentally stimulated.
get that addicted dopamine rush is what it
and
is.
and then I mean not really, and then afterwards it helps me wind down because I just blare my music in the car, and then I'll play like 30 minutes. Like, oh, okay, that was nice to burn off the steam. Time to go home.
Yeah, kind of became like
So
a comfort thing
I
for
mean
you.
it's like if you watch 4 hours of TV in a day, it's at least what I'm doing is mentally stimulating. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
Like
always been my argument for games. Like my parents would get on to me for playing games. It's like you guys are literally just sitting in there watching a screen. At least I'm like thinking and reacting and essentially doing the same thing, just more thought into it. But
I mean,
yeah,
how many people do you know watch 2+ hours of TV when they get home?
yeah,
Like I don't watch TV in the mornings. I'll watch a little bit of TV to unwind before I go to bed, but I mean, even then, it's usually something like right now I'm watching Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. I'm re-watching that show. When I watch stuff nowadays, I like it to be decent content.
yeah. That's how I am too, but like to the extreme. Like I pretty much don't watch anything unless like it's ranting and raving. Or I watch a lot of stuff on YouTube just because it's like easy to do while I'm playing games. But I would much rather like chill and watch or listen to a podcast while I'm playing a game than watch really anything unless it is like absolutely worth the time. Like the Last of Us show was the last thing I watched that was like super worth it in my opinion. House of the Dragon was pretty good. This was all last year, but that's about it. I'm kind of lame when it comes to the shows. I used to watch a lot, like a lot of movies and stuff, but just would rather play games and catch up with my shows on YouTube and all that. I just love YouTube's becoming more and more popular, I think, with the younger generation still. And it's just people just want to see real stuff. Like, it might not be as exciting. Like, it's not like the movie or the Disney movies suck. Like, they're huge box office movies. It's just a problem of people are just kind of burnt out. They're tired of seeing the same thing. And, like,
what will she choose today on The Bachelor?
Yeah, it's like
The
the same
Golden
thing
Bachelor.
over and over. People just competing for
Survivor
attention.
56. Who's going to win this time?
Survivor is still going on. I can't believe that.
That's why I mentioned it, and I'm shocked that it's still going on. Big Brother's still going on.
Yeah.
American Idol's still going on. All these shows, and it's like, who in the hell is watching this shit to keep it going on for 20 years?
Just people mindlessly watching their TV. Like,
I mean, that's exactly what it is. It's no different than watching the YouTube stuff. It's just with YouTube, unless it's like stuff I really, really like, I just don't watch much YouTube. I don't even watch as much Pokemon content as I used to. Like, it's just a few times a month, honestly.
I watch Pokemon content, like, as far as the podcasts, but I'll listen to those while I'm doing other stuff or at work. Like, I do consume a lot of that, but if I'm all caught up, it's like an audiobook that I'm listening to. But usually, because I don't listen as much, there's always something to listen to.
Honestly, what I do is I'll listen to like whole discographies, analyzing how bands and music, develop through this band or artists, and just appreciate the music. That's something I've always done that, but in the last 6 months to a year, I've been doing that a lot more.
Yeah, and that's kind of like if I do watch actual videos, like that's the kind of content I watch, and that's kind of what I was getting at. Like, people want like more real things, like someone discussing like an interesting topic, or even if it's like, a boring show that they don't really do anything, like you're watching like real people, small time production, stuff like that. With all my hobbies and interests, there's always something I could find on YouTube, and I watch a lot of like financial videos and stuff, like investing things. Like, I think that whole world's interesting. But yep, I'm kind of a boring YouTuber life, but that's kind of the way things are going. More and more people hopping on YouTube, but
well, I think with their ad block thing, I think people are jumping off YouTube.
Well, there's still other ways. Like, I have multiple ad blockers,
Yeah.
and I can like approve it for one.
Oh, I know. I'm just saying, a lot of people are getting frustrated with that. People have revolted back, but
on the
I don't
same
know.
side of that, like there's probably a bunch of YouTube videos talking about the financial aspects of that, and invest in Alphabet, invest in Google, because more people are going to be watching ads, and we're going to see that in the revenue in a couple months. So that's the interesting side that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing that happened. I remember when Facebook started showing ads on their feed. Like, that's, maybe boomer, but I remember when
boomer.
I remember when that day happened, and I'm like, man, I should invest in some Facebook. I didn't, but sure enough, in about a month or two, Facebook shot up with huge revenue boost, because that's what YouTube has been doing for a long time.
You talk about investing. Let's talk about something I mentioned to my brother. Like, hey, let's try to go in on this D23 set. We'd make tens of thousands of dollars within a year or so. And he's like, no, thank you. I'm going to stick to the more staple investments like Tesla.
Yeah.
I was like, Tesla? Okay. Like maybe Google and like your blue chips like Ford, GM, stuff like that I could kind of understand. Disney even, these Americana businesses that built America, like that's different, right?
Sometimes.
Yeah, but overall, I mean, we saw what's happened to Tesla in the last 12 to 18 months, right? I mean, not to get involved in that too much, but like not even the fact that I don't like Musk. I would never give that company one penny. And even if it's to as a personal financial investment,
Like
never.
what has Tesla done the last year? I probably heard of it, but I forgot.
Oh no, it's just Musk. Like the way the guy
Oh,
talks,
yeah.
like you really want to trust your money with somebody like that? If he kept his mouth shut, it would have been different. And it's like, okay, you can just keep your BS behind closed doors. But then you see him talk, and it's like this guy's supposed to be the Steve Jobs of our generation. Seriously, the guy makes comments that are in big incel energy, and we're really supposed to take them as this savant? No, no. I would be fearful of having tens of thousands, millions of dollars in his company, okay? Especially since Toyota has unveiled a potentially more affordable electric motor option, okay? I'd rather invest in Toyota than Tesla.
Yeah, there's probably some smarter plays. It has done
I'm just
historically
saying.
pretty well, though.
That was just something that, as an example, you know. But at the end of the day, I usually just put into my Roth or brokerage account. I don't really buy like individual stocks. That might change in a few years, but that's just where I'm at right now.
Yeah, that's my main thing. Like, it's not more so that he mentioned Tesla because I don't know. I kind of think the opposite. I don't worship Musk or anything, but he's got a lot of good points. But if you're, I don't know, if you're extreme leaning to one side or the other, like I could see where you have like problems with him. But like, I don't know. We can get into that another time, but I don't agree with his views on like COVID and all that. Like he is kind of
Or
pretty
just about everything
idiotic.
else.
Some things. He's
I mean, the guy,
pretty idiotic for the COVID stuff and like yeah
the
how
right
he
leaning views
treats
he
it.
has
But
on a lot of things, especially his opinion on LGBTQ people. That's something that really pisses me off. So that's why, like, I can't support something like that.
yeah, he does have a few of those that are like yeah. If he could
Yeah.
just stick with the business and his ideas on business and like the future, yeah, he'd be a lot more likable. But unfortunately, he likes to put himself out there a little bit. But yeah, anybody who mentions like individual stocks, like it is kind of a chuckle, especially unless they're talking like, super indie or riskier things or, Bitcoin, which has been doing pretty well actually.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I do the old boring investments, a lot of mutual funds or ETFs, that business like that, you know. VOO for the win. That's the OS&P 500 Vanguard thing. So, Vanguard ETF. You're pretty much like betting on all the Teslas, all the Apples when you buy something like that. So, it's a lot more boring, but yeah, it's interesting.
But
But
anyways, at the end of the day, I think Pokemon
bringing it back.
Magic. Yeah, like we kind of got off tangent there. I believe that Pokemon can be replicated, but I think Disney Lorcana is probably the only one who could do it. And like, it's not going to happen from One Piece. It's not going to happen from Dragon Ball Super. Any of that. The only one that could do it would be Disney. There's no other existing IPs currently that could even come close.
Yeah, Magic. It's all playability. There's nostalgia there, but it's once again playability. There was like 20 to 30 year olds. Like here's the thing. I think Lorcana is closer to Magic, where it's like the older fan base. Because even when Magic first came out, when I was going to the comic shop, not just comics, shout out. When I was going to that store, they were having Magic events, and the people playing Magic were like 20 and 30. So that's kind of what we're seeing in Lorcana right now. But I think if they can capitalize on the smaller, build that, basically look 20 years from now, who's going to care about Lorcana? You want to build it out and you want to get that smaller audience so we really create that nostalgia for down the road. That's where it's going to be at. Because yeah, the main thing driving Pokemon, the main thing driving the hype is people revisiting their childhood. Um, Lorcana will be cool, but it's not just gonna be that intense connection like no other. It just strikes back to her childhood, but and for that to happen, like it has to be kind of become a hype. Like we're seeing it, but we're seeing it in the hype of you know the older generation. So we're not seeing that hype of the little kids. When the kids are going to school and they're into Lorcana and they're trading their Lorcana cards and they're talking to their friends about Lorcana, like that builds the insane, intense nostalgia that we're looking for and have seen in Pokemon. So I don't think Pokemon will ever be topped in that category. Um, so yeah, that's why I was a hard no overall. I could see the situation though where it just gets so big in that 20 to 30-year-old category because of just the sheer amount of Disney fans. Um, we could be talking that potential, but when you start talking about the older, like 40, 50-year-olds who are just collecting it because it's Disney, I think you have to tap into that play aspect too, just like Pokemon. And they're
I
not
say
they're
the
not really pushing the you got to collect them all. It's people are building decks. People are having fun with it and playing it, which is their intention. It's not really meant to be a collecting make a binder type thing. So I think that's gonna not make the strong connections needed. I think it'll still do well, but it's not gonna be Pokemon. It's gonna be more of like the Yu-Gi-Ohs and the Magic, where they're definitely going to be a powerhouse. They're definitely going to have a huge fan base. There's definitely going to be cards that are like Grail cards, but it's just not going to be that Pokemon level. Also, the world we live in, all we had back then was Pokemon. It was Pokemon everything. Um, Disney wasn't really doing anything aside from their movies. Sometimes you'd have like Happy Meal
Oh, come on.
toys.
I was about to say their Happy Meals toys are some of the stuff of legend.
Yeah,
I
like that's
mean,
that's what you remember because kids were getting the
yeah,
Happy Meal toys. What are
Hercules
kids?
plates. Come on.
Yeah, Hercules plates. What are kids getting today? They have access to Pokemon. They have access to billions of things, like whatever the next YouTuber they follow says. All these TikTok trends. You know, it's
Let's do this dance in the middle of the public and let's talk about how I'm the main character.
so yeah. There's so many other things that are catching people's attention, and the world moves so much faster. It's on to the next thing, on to the next thing, and Lorcana was one of those things. It'll calm down. It's not gonna die out, but it's definitely gonna suffer in the future, just like everything does. Dragon Ball Z Super card game was the next big thing. Now One Piece is pretty much killing that off.
Well, yeah, I
So
don't know. We're at about the 5 year mark for the Dragon Ball Super. It's obviously got its premier cards and its diehard fans, but I don't know if it's going to get any further. And it doesn't help that there hasn't been any new Dragon Ball Super. Well, there was that movie that came out last year, 2 years ago, but there really hasn't been a lot of Dragon Ball Super content as far as the anime outside those movies. And what doesn't make sense is the fact that the manga is like 3 arcs ahead of the anime at this point. Like they've
yeah,
had set like there is significant content. Like they can make like 200 episodes right now with just the content that they have about from like the manga. So it's like I don't understand that. But I think that's why you're kind of seeing Dragon Ball Super to an extent, but it kind of like be middling, whereas like One Piece is still going with the manga and with the anime.
yeah. One Piece has got some potential, but yeah, I don't think anything's gonna top old Pokemon. And Disney could start marketing it. They could, even if they don't make a show, they could like run commercials, run ads on all this to reach the younger audience. Um, or they could make subsets where you like it's more of a gotta collect them all. Collect this 20 card set. So and kind of entice that more collector feel. They still got plenty of time. Just started.
Mm-hmm.
they could make whatever they want. But let's wrap up the main topic there, though.
Yeah, let's just.
Did you have a question this time?
Or? I did. It's pretty simple. And within the next year, what do you think people should prioritize buying? Gold stars, first edition base set, or Japanese exclusive promos? Which and why?
I'm always on the gold star train. I think they're underhyped, but like we said, just look at the EX era. There's not a whole lot of nostalgia there.
Nope.
People didn't really collect that as kids. People as adults see that as one of the key eras and the most collectible eras, but we just kind of ignore it because that connection, that hype isn't there, because that's not really what people want unless they're really deep into the hobby. So that's kind of what I'm thinking like Lorcana will become. But because of that reason, I'm not going to say gold stars. I'm going to almost have to say first edition Charizard.
The big three even.
Yeah, the Japanese they make more sense as far as stability. So does Charizard, but the problem is like WotC right now has came down so hard from the hype and it has stabilized at the bottom. Whereas the Japanese cards, they kind of had a late boom this summer. They've came down and stabilized, but now they're already on the rise again. WotC in general, there's a lot of it, so it's reached the bottom and kind of stayed there for about a year now. And with what we talked about last time, with modern kind of not necessarily dying out, but these less hype sets, 151 kind of re-sparked that modern hype. This Paldean, what the hell is it called?
Paldean Fates.
Paldean Fates will kind of re-spark that again. So it takes these special products to keep the interest up in modern. But when people get tired of modern, or they get tired of the same old like base sets, maybe they'll spice them up next year, like we said. But people are gonna go back to, okay, I spent all this money on modern, but it's fun. But what do I actually want? Like, what talks to me the most? And it's still WotC. I think a lot of people are going to be seeing that. Not saying we've called everything correct, but everything we kind of mentioned like that kind of somewhat turns out to be true. Like, I've been in this hobby a long time. Usually things that I'm picking up on or things that I'm thinking, there's other people deep in the hobby who are thinking about the same things and seeing the same things. All I'm doing is looking at the prices of WotC cards. I'm like, man, they've really came down, but they've been at these low prices for a long time, so they seem stable. Everybody wants them. It kind of makes sense to be the safe play, but it's kind of the argument you had when everything went crazy. Everything is being opened up more and more. There's less of them coming into the market, but we'll see. I specifically collect the Charizard, though. It's not that I'm going and buying all the base set unlimited cards, but even if you did that, I mean, they're pretty much at their bottom. There was a lot graded during the hype, and all those are pretty much back now. So yeah, they might stay low for a while, but it's a pretty safe spot to put your money to. Japanese promos as well. Just the quality you get from a Japanese promo, like that one I won today. Weird timing. It was in a bidding war, and it had 136 watchers on that one card. So there's definitely interest there. And with the what we've seen with the Ban Go, I think Pokemon, like we talked about too, I think they're just gonna make less and less of these staple promos. So the staple promos we have now, which are the Ponchos, the Festas, the Marios, the full arts,
even the stamps.
Yeah, that's just going to be more common of a thing, and like people will always see these cards as like kind of the golden era. It was kind of the golden era of promos in the Sun and Moon era, but
XY into early Sun and Moon, yeah.
Yeah, and then the Scream promos, like we didn't even know how good we had it, and then we look back and it's like, man, those are still like some of the best promos. And now, like, who knows if they ever make promos of that caliber anymore because
I would be shocked.
people get arrested and act like freaking.
I'm sorry, I thought this was. Look at map. The Netherlands.
Yeah, people act like animals in there, just getting pieces
Yeah.
of cardboard. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. Or if they do make something like that, they're gonna print enough where it's like ridiculous.
Doesn't
Even
have
as
the
many of
value.
the Van Gogh promos as they printed, the demand is so crazy that they're still going for a lot. Those have actually went up in price. Like I think they went up to like 140 now raw. They were like 50, then they went up to 100, and they're going up still. So
I think it's a lot of quote unquote speculators within the modern hobby, and they're FOMOing hard.
yeah, yeah, but it's wild times. It's supply and
But
demand, but the demand side is just so hard to gauge
yeah,
with that stuff. And yeah, people were thinking they're the next Scream promos, which they're not. It's not even close, but in a way, I could, you can't blame them for thinking that. We haven't seen anything since really that had to do with like a world famous artist from history, and this was it.
yeah.
Wild.
Honestly, I would have to say the first edition is the best time to buy. While Goat Stars are actually pretty low too overall. I was just taking a look. The PSA 7 Gold Star Charizard you can have for less than $2,000. So there is definitely it's a good time to buy if you're into Gold Stars. But the more safer pick, if you're trying to find something like to choose, which one are you going to enjoy more? Which one you think is going to have the better long term value when you decide to resell? If you decide to resell, I would say right now it's been no other time to buy, especially in the next year for first edition base set. Especially if you're trying to get in the PSA like 6 to 8 range,
Mm-hmm.
which is for me, I'm looking at PSA, 5 for the Charizard, 6 if maybe things go right, or if I consolidate, or PSA 5 Charizard and the PSA 7 Venusaur and Blastoise, because people are wanting upwards of like 2,500, 3,000 for some of those, or like say 2,000 or 2,500, but they're selling for on auctions. You can get it with sales tax for like 1,500 right
Yeah.
now for PSA 7, which is near mint, okay? Like PSA 7 is near mint. And if you look at the history of those cards, where they reached in the hype, 5 times, they reach 4 to 5 times what they're going for now. So you see what they can reach. And you're looking at, I mean, right now, if you're going to buy, they're like 4 times what they were. No, they're like 3 to 4 times what they were just before the hype. So, but they obviously went 4 to 5 times even beyond what they are now during the hype. So you kind of see what they can reach and what they were from a couple of years ago. This is the closest you're ever going to see them to that pre 2020 value. And
Yeah.
because of that reason, that is why I say if you're like don't put it on credit cards, don't do any of that shit. But like if you're looking for moves to make within the next 12 to 13 months, that's the move you make.
Yep. It'll be worth it. I think anything is a time to buy. I mean, pretty much the only thing not worth buying right now is, I've always said ultra modern. It's
PSA 10 Umbreon is down to under 800 average.
yeah, took a lot longer to get there, but
Yep,
we
that's what.
were telling people like, yeah, you could make a lot of money and take off at the hype, but the thing people are talking about, if it's Lorcana, if it's Moonbryon, things fade away. Like more
Yep.
things come, things fade out. There's always value there in some of those things, but things fade away. If you're looking to go for like a super hype card right now and everyone else is hype about it, just wait. It'll have its day. Even the Van Gogh, it's taken a lot longer to get there because people are still hyped about it. People are grading them now. It's gonna go lower. It'll happen. So
I think we're going to see the Umbreon go closer to what the value should be between 6 and 700.
yeah.
That's what the value should be right now, and it's getting closer to that value. I almost pulled the trigger just before the, like it was that's one of the cards I was trying to get, and it looked great, and it was like 350, 400, and I was gonna pull. I was like, this was the Casey Collecticon from 2022, and I was like, if he still has it, I'll get it. But he sold it first thing in the morning, and it was
Yeah.
like 350, 400, and within that week or two, it was like 600, and then that was just before like the peak and all that.
And that was a
So
very rare exception too. Like very
mhm.
rarely after a card releases that the hype builds even more. And the only card that has really done that since has been, I don't know if the Pikachu deck from Worlds has done that. They kind of stabilized. They never went really crazy. It was just in general good play. But the only card that's done that since that card has been the Span Go Pikachu. So even though it's like still going up, even after all these copies hit in the market, that's what Moonbreon did. So no matter how high it goes, eventually there will come a day when something else is out, and it's not as sought after. Like I take my own opinion pretty seriously because it's my collection. I buy what I want. I like what I like. I don't even like that card. I think I've said it before. It's English. It's a nice full art promo, but the portrait is a little low. The text is like right on his chin. It's English, and by the way, it's English. I
You
just
know,
I just don't like English cards. Um, as far as like full art promos go, I'm a Japanese full art exclusive collector. So like that is like one random English card in my collection. Like the art would have to be a little better for me to like pick that one up. So I'm sure, not toot my own horn, but I'm sure some people think the same thing. I have no idea. I'd rather buy the Precious Collection box in a tin, which is like $100 or so cheaper in a tin right now. Rather buy that. Texture is way cooler, more Pokemon on it, cooler art, not English.
yeah, yeah. So what about your question?
I'll do a real quick one. This one is eBay tips. What's your number one quirk that you do for eBay listings that you
For
think is good
selling,
to share?
if you're doing an
Selling
auction,
or buying?
so I'll do about one of both. For selling, if you're doing an auction, make sure it ends at minimum between 7 and 10. And if you're able to, try to make it end on like a Sunday, if possible. So as an example, my girlfriend is she works with home loans and she works with sales with home loans. So she calls people that fill an application and blah blah blah. Anyways, her best times for people answering is between the hours of like 7 and 9, 6 and 9, because that's when most people are at home and are free and they're just watching TV, just hanging out. That's when you can reach a lot of people. Likewise, when it translates well to auctions, well, that's when you're going to have the most eyes on it. 7, 10 days doesn't really matter, but which one you do, in my opinion. And then for as far as buying, the number one thing I do is I'll watch it, and if it's an item I think isn't really a big deal, I'll probably throw like a bid on it just to see if I'll win it. Now, if it's one I'm really trying to get and I'm trying to get for good value, I don't bid at all until the final 5 to 10 seconds. And it was scary to see that on the Stitch side because I was experiencing two potential buyers that were operating under the same principle. And I kind of got that vibe leading into the final day when it still was only like at 2 grand, and it was in the final 10 seconds, and it was still at 2100. I was starting to freak out a little bit. Like worst case scenario was happening right before my eyes, and I didn't do a reserve because the amount that they take out makes it to where unless it would have sold for under 2500, it wouldn't have been worth the reserve price. Well, we were looking at that situation, and it was scary. Because I was going to have to blow up my rating because I was not going to sell that card for 2200 bucks. I'll tell you that right now, and it would have been very tricky, but it would have been worth it. And what I would say as far as buying is Don't bid, because if there's somebody else bidding and there's that person interested, they know that they have at least one person to compete against. I cannot tell you how many auctions I've won in the final 5 to 10 seconds. Now it's tricky because if you don't, if you, I've also had a situation where I lost an auction because I waited till too late, and then like I was like, oh shit, there's only 3 or 4 seconds left. Bid one, two, oh shit, it's done. You know, like I have had that before, and it happens, but you just gotta be careful with it.
Yeah, my biggest thing for buying is exactly about that. A lot of people think it's like timing, doing the last second, but that's not really how eBay works anymore. That used to be the case where it's like when this timer hits 0, whoever put that last bid in wins. But since they've done it where you put in your max bid, it's never really been a time thing, but it is kinda. So, for instance, like when I bought this card today, like I'm trying to think of a way to explain it. Basically, whoever puts in the higher number, what they're willing to pay, they will win the auction. Like no matter what. If there's like 3 bids when it hits 0 and it needs to process it, that's when, you know, sometimes you may have experienced this where you're looking at an item and it waits and it like won't refresh, like it's processing all those bids. But ultimately, whoever puts in the highest number should win regardless of when they put that in.
Yep. See, that's why I would also say it depends. You want to wait till the final handful of seconds as well, in my opinion, and then put whatever the highest you're willing to bid.
Yeah.
If it's a higher end item, I can understand if you wait till like the final few minutes, but ultimately you want just wait, and then whatever you like, you know, if you know the market price, you kind of look like, you know, you might have to bid a little bit more. Just put what your highest you're willing to bid, and that's it. That way you don't be one of those people that paid, what was it, $3,900 for the PSA 10 D23 Captain Hook that was going for $2,200.
Yeah.
The guy freaked out. Whoever bought it freaked out, spent $4,000 on it, paid 70% over the market price. So,
yeah.
I mean, yeah.
That's where I kind of said, like, maybe it kind of is still a time thing. Because, yeah, I agree. Like, what I do, obviously, you don't want to put in your max bid right away and have it sit there. Because people see the number, they see the bid, and then they know, okay, well, I at least have to bid this much. And even if they put that bid in, like, with 30 seconds left, it'll immediately tell them, you know, you're still not winning. So they could put in the bid multiple times until they reach that number, and sometimes it'll just happen to be at the second before, and they'll steal the auction from you. So yeah, I agree. Put in the max you're willing to pay if you're very conservative, like right at the end. Even the last. So if you're putting in a bid like on $1,000 item that's at 1,000 and you're wanting to pay like 1,050, that's where you get pretty risky the closer you get down. Because if you put that bid in with like 3 seconds left, while you're typing it in, if someone puts in a bid higher at the 4-second mark, it'll tell you like, please put in a higher amount. So that's when you run into that situation of like, oh crap, I'm running out of time. I got to put in a higher number because someone just bid. But if you're wanting to overpay on the current bid by quite a bit, you're safer. Because it essentially, like, if 2 people are putting in the number at the same time and one person bids higher than what they're currently typing in at that second, it'll, like, boot them out and, like, type in a new number, you know. So there's definitely some mind games. So what I'll do, if it's an item that I for sure want to win, like today's poncho, at the 30-second mark, I'll put in a bid that's, like, higher but not my max, just so I can get a feel of what their max is. Like I'm fishing for the max. If I put in on that $1,000 item, if I put in like 1,100 and I'm willing to pay 1,400, like I'll put in that 1,100 bid and it'll tell me that I'm the highest bidder. So I'm like, okay, I got this now. So I'm still going to put in that 1,400, but I might wait until like the last seconds, because they have to respond, and then I already got like a counter response in the system. But with this one, it was a little difficult. I had to fish for it. I had to put in like 2 or 3 bids to find what their minimum was. So I think I got the highest bidder notification at like 4,800, and then I waited like a few more seconds, and then I put in another bid that was above my current one, and then I ultimately won at like the 4,950. So that person did put in another offer that beat mine. You just got to kind of think like the mind games. It's kind of a back and forth, but I call that like doubling up. Like you want to be the highest bidder, but you want your like maximum bid on the ready. Like you don't want to give it away too early, if that makes sense. But so it is kind of a time game, but if you don't want to mess with all that, or you're trying to shave off a couple bucks, or you don't care about, like you don't want to overpay, like I wouldn't have done this if I didn't, want to somewhat overpay for this item. But I didn't mind overpaying because I've been hunting it for so long. But if you're only wanting to spend like this amount, no, like not a penny over, then yeah, just go ahead, put your max in and let it ride. It's not really worth all the mind games unless you've done it a lot. But with that, guess we should wrap it up. We went a little longer than I expected.
Yep, I gotta still get to the gym, and I gotta be at the store by 5 till. So by 5 till 4. So
yeah, we're at old Magelings. We'll let you know what happens with that. But good talk. I knew, like I said, if we would have recorded Monday, we're recording Friday. Like we would have skipped half this news. So it does pay off to wait. It's just kind of nerve wracking. If something popped up today where we couldn't record, we'd be scrambling.
Mm-hmm.
But it's worth it when we can pull it off. So hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Lots of info to pack in. More episodes, like we mentioned, should be pretty chill like this, where we're kind of winging it, just talking about current events rather than a specific topic. But yeah, overall pretty good. Any closing remarks you want to say?
Nope. I'm ready to see what happens today.
All right, guys. We'll see you in the next one. We'll catch you then. Peace out.
Till next time, y'all. Peace.